Hello and welcome to Tete-a-Tete by Fresxco Media. We're here today for part 3 of our big Premier League preview, where we're giving you a lowdown on all the Premier League clubs after what has been an eventful transfer window. And where better to start today than Tottenham Hotspur, who have brought in arguably their best player in the past decade back to Tottenham Hotspur, Gareth Bale. They've added Sergio Reguilon, and they look to be a team that has rebranded themselves, found themselves a new identity at the new stadium, and finally have brought in the star names to add to that big stadium.
Yeah, it's very interesting time for Tottenham Hotspur's fans. I think it's a very divided base right now in the sense that is Mourinho the way to go forward with this team, or is Mourinho exactly what's required in order to take this team to, kind of say the next level in terms of actually winning trophies and not just, just finishing third in a two-horse race title. but as an Arsenal fan, as you see, like Mourinho over the years is of course kind of given Arsenal a few fair bits of batterings here and there. And to be very fair, from what I've seen till now, especially after the season has started, the way that they've started, especially 6-1 at Old Trafford, which is regardless of the fact that there was a red card, I think it's quite a bit of statement from Tottenham's side. Um, I am a bit worried. I would say before the season started, I wasn't that worried because we all know how Josie is, and it looked like already towards the end of last season that his third season syndrome was kind of slipping into its the first season itself with the way that he was talking to the press about certain players and the club and how the backing is required. But based on their current results in the league, the first 4 games, I am a bit worried that they might be dark horses for the top three.
Before we get on to the specifics of Tottenham season, I'm sure you've watched the Amazon documentary on Tottenham Hotspur's, you could say, transitional season last year, and we saw a lot of, iconic quotes from Mourinho and his backroom staff about certain players. And that led you to believe that he's probably one of the best man motivators out there because for the longest time, we've seen that he's been one of the best in the game as a manager. And we all wondered as to what exactly does he say to his players to get them to play on his wavelength or to his ideas. What do you think about the documentary, and do you think that has a great effect on how neutral looks at Mourinho and Tottenham Hotspur this season?
I think 100%, absolutely 100%. And again, I'm not trying to belittle Tottenham, but I think that the documentary as a whole was like a Jose Mourinho kind of a personal marketing scheme because he came out
He
of
was
it
the selling
brilliantly.
point. I'm
He
sure he was
was, he
touted as a
was.
selling point.
And you know what my opinion on Jose Mourinho has been over the years, and I think it's been a bit biased, of course, because I'm as an Arsenal fan, and the way that he and the fact that he's coached Chelsea and Manchester United. But to be very fair, I think over the last 6 months, I think especially since he got sacked at United and his punditry roles at Sky Sports for certain games, and on top of that, the Amazon All or Nothing document. I think my respect for Mourinho, I think I've always had respect for him, but I've actually started to admire the guy a little bit in the sense that the way he actually kind of tries to get his players going, I really do kind of uh, agree with the way his man management, coaching, and skills are based upon. And I'm quite excited to see what he does this season, although I hope he does still finish below Arsenal.
Of course. But this is his second season, and we've always heard about the second season syndrome. I mean, he does have a third season syndrome where his clubs normally lose the plot, but the second season is where he sets his team up to win either one of the big trophies, the Champions League, the Premier League, or the domestic league titles or the cups. Um, I mean, we're not going to sit here and say that Tottenham Hotspur are going to win the Premier League. Surely this is too early in their development under Mourinho, but is a cup success quite important to them, considering that they have a very dry trophy cabinet at the moment?
I think so. I think genuinely for more than any other club in the top six, let alone the top six, I think in the top eight, because Tottenham are in that position where they can actually consolidate themselves as kind of a superpower in European football. That they just maybe, like I personally, if I was a Tottenham fan, I would want them to go for the Europa League. And Mourinho has pedigree in the competition. He has won it with Manchester United in his first season there. And I hope they don't. I genuinely hope they don't because I think it can be a plus point for them. Uh, what do you think about Mourinho and the Europa League, and how important do you think it is for him in the future, especially while he's at Tottenham Hotspur? And could it define the rest of his time at Tottenham if he wins, say, a trophy?
For sure, I think if he wins even one trophy, he'd probably go down as one of the greats as a Tottenham manager, simply because the others haven't. But it, as much as it does, it would make me happy to see Tottenham win a trophy. It does pain me to see that Pochettino didn't leave his reign with a trophy, because for all that he accomplished without winning a trophy, I think it has to be said that he brought the club to a level where challenging for the top four year in year out became a precedent. And that being said, the Europa League gives them a great opportunity to build on something in Europe. Of course, we do know that they lost out.
I want to ask you one more question. Like Tottenham over the last 4 years, they've made the Champions League, right? Finishing in the top four. If you were a Tottenham fan right now, what would you rather have? Finishing top four or actually having the guarantee of, say, of an FA Cup trophy?
This is a difficult one. I think as a football fan, you would obviously want them to finish in the top four, for the simple reason that it guarantees you more money, a chance to play against the elite, and of course, it boosts your prestige as a club. But this is Tottenham Hotspur. They haven't won a trophy in around 12, 13 years, and we all know how important trophies are for a club. You just take the example of Liverpool and Man City, even, because these clubs won trophies or even FA Cups or Carabao Cups after a long period of time, and it was celebrated as an accomplishment, a start of something new, and that is what trophies mean. We've even seen with Arsenal having won the FA Cup and the Community Shield, even, that it's kickstarted a lot of positivity amongst the fans about the backing of the manager, the club, the players. So trophies are important in a club's history, and what better than the ideal combination of a trophy, a proven trophy winner in Mourinho, and a club without trophies to ultimately win a trophy, no matter which one it is, whether it's in Europe or domestically.
Who knows? Maybe Jose might have actually just met his perfect match at England, and he might just kind of look at it before. Like, he has thrived being the underdog. Like at Porto, they were the underdog to Benfica at the time when he took over. At Chelsea, he was the underdog when it came to, of course, the two giants at the time, Manchester United and Arsenal, vying it out for the Premier League title season year in, year and out. And then at Inter Milan also, in the sense that there was a little bit of turmoil. They had just won back to back to back under Roberto Mancini, but they kind of weren't exactly expecting to kind of go and win the treble 2 years on with Jose Mourinho. And I think it's ever since he took over Madrid where, a sense of how to say it, that his past success has made him most coveted manager at the time. But Madrid, of course, we all know Real Madrid, they demand instant success, and it didn't kind of come because
he's a victim of his own success that way. He's a victim because even when he joined Man United, he was expected too much just because of his track record. But the problems that persisted there have, given the bad impression on him that, he demands too much from the board, he loses interest in the club within a year's time. And like you mentioned, the underdog story is a perfect match for a club like Tottenham. You don't expect them to even win a single trophy just because of their history. But I want to come on to their players a bit, because
yes, exactly.
We've spoken about the manager and the impact he can have on a team, but we should mention that this team, or at least half this team, did reach the Champions League final and has been a critical element of this team over the past 4 or 5 years. Harry Kane, of course, has been the most lethal striker in the Premier League since he entered the stage. And in Heung-min Son, they have one of the most lovable guys on a football pitch at the moment, and his performance in that drubbing against Man United was beautiful to watch. But now the big question comes in as to how he fits in Gareth Bale into this team, because Bale hasn't played as regularly as he wanted to in the last 2 or 3 years, and he's clearly lacking match sharpness towards his start whenever he beds into the team. Now, if they get Bale fit and firing, what do you think is the ceiling for the Spurs squad?
I think let's look at the potential first 11 that they could put out. If, say, they have all the players fit, you can have Lloris. Of course, I think Lloris is the undisputed number one right now, and Sergio Reguilon, I think, has the potential to be one of the buys of the season. I mean, okay, forget the fact that they have a buyback clause, like Real Madrid have inserted a buyback clause. If they can get 2 to maybe 3 seasons of solid service out of Sergio Reguilon and then sell him back to Real Madrid, I think they would have done a fantastic job, because he could have arguably got them into the Champions League, maybe won them a trophy in that period. And Matt Doherty might not be the most flashiest name when it comes to players being touted in the market in order to take over the right back position, but the more I look at it, I think he has got some very solid investments in that team right now. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg in the middle of that park, I've really liked him. When he's played for Southampton, I've really enjoyed watching him play, and I don't think he's been given enough credit that he also can be a difference in the final third. He won't score goals, but he can instigate attacks by giving it to the players in the wings. And then, of course, let's not forget about Bale coming back. I think it's already brought a feel-good factor to this club, and if you can get even 60% of the Bale that we saw at Tottenham in his last season, I genuinely do think there will be dark horses for the top three. And let's not forget that Harry Kane has also started the season in fantastic form.
So Leicester City are the champions of 2015-16, and we just spoke about Tottenham Hotspur there, who somehow surprisingly ended up third in a two-horse race against Leicester that season. But there were parallels between that title-winning season and the first half of last season for Leicester, where they were the only challengers in the first half to Liverpool. And at one point, I do remember people touting them as not a surprise winner or a surprise contender for the Premier League title, but a club that has structure and a plan built around Brendan Rodgers. And of course, Leicester don't really have the fan pressure that the other traditional top six would have. So for them, it kind of an advantage that they can get away with a certain run of games that we saw at the end of last season, where they bottled the top four race. But this season, it's more refreshing for them because Jamie Vardy again is on top form. They've brought in Timothy Castagne, who is a fantastic buy to fill in for Ricardo Pereira when he's injured. They've lost Ben Chilwell, but they've kind of replaced him with an academy graduate, James Justin. And Leicester still have a lot of young players who still are yet to reach their potential. So where do you see Brendan looking to improve this team going down the line? Because they have a lot of players who are around 23, 24, 25. So what is their realistic target going into this season?
I think first of all, I think Leicester fans are one of the most you could say luckiest fans out there, because I do think that it's very rare to find fans who are quite in sync with the owners of the club when it comes to almost everything on the pitch as well as off the pitch. And we all know the whole thing about the Srivardhanaprabha family who owned Leicester, and the way that they're looked at by the community with so much love because of what they've given to the club, and not just in terms of money and investment, the ethos that they bring to the club and the values that clearly that they've instilled not just in the club but in the community as well.
Yeah, I like to give a first-hand acknowledgement of that, because having
Yes.
attended a few games at Leicester, it was lovely to see. I think I did attend the anniversary of their former owner, Vichai Sridhar Prabha's death, and that was a big moment for the club, a sad moment, and to see the club's fans in unity was fantastic. So
Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about. And I do think it's, even from a neutral's perspective, like, I'm sure it is a fantastic moment, like a somber occasion, but then also a moment that you must have felt like, yes, I understand what this club is all about.
absolutely.
And the community and the way that they have the bond that they have with the club. And I think that the owners have made sure that that bond has not been damaged. So I do think a lot of credit needs to be given to them. And coming to the football aspect of it, I mean, I think they've done some fantastic business in the market in general, especially when it comes to selling on players. Last season, Harry Maguire for 80 million. I think we can all agree that that was a tad bit expensive, but fantastic business from Leicester's point of view. And Ben Chilwell this season for 50 million. Like, before the season started, I was telling a couple of friends that, I was, in fact, when we were discussing about Atlanta, like Timothy Castan, I think he's going to be one of the buys of the season. And let's look at the fact that he was bought for half the price. And of course, we all know that they've invested in Wesley Fofana, who's one more up and coming centre back, who's of course part of the French contingency that's like taking all over Europe right now. But if you look at the team right now, and if you look at the fact that they kind of did underachieve in the sense that, at least until lockdown started, Leicester was shoo-in for the top four. Unfortunately, they did finish in fifth position. But if you had asked any Leicester fan before the start of the 2019-20 season, would they take fifth position? I think they would have bit your hand off. So you can still consider it maybe a success that season. And I do see them kicking on, hopefully in the sense that they are more competitive throughout the season, rather than having the spurt that they had at the start of the season. And then, of course, we all saw the fall off, it was gigantic after especially Project Restart happened. But what do you look at when you look at Leicester? What do you think that their aspirations need to be this season, and how far do you think Brendan Rodgers can take this team going forward? And would a top four place be too much to expect?
I think Leicester is an interesting one because um, they have a squad that is capable, like you mentioned, of getting to the top four. They should have been in the top four last year, and the big criticism has been that they're pretty much they have only one gear due to the lack of quality backup. But this year they do have a few additions that can kind of change their dimension in the way they play. It was always about that back four and how Johnny Evans and Soyuncu were such an integral part of their defense. And Didi, of course, shielding them in midfield. But as soon as Ricardo Pereira got injured, the form just dipped. And I really hope that they can keep, a consistent level of performance because we've seen that they did lose their last game to West Ham 3-0 at home. And that's a bad result to take, especially at home, because you expect them to at least, keep a clean sheet, if not score a goal and win the game. But in terms of going to the season, the Europa League is a big challenge for them because in any season it would already be a problem, the number of fixtures, but this season even more so. And traveling for the Leicester team is quite new, considering that not many of them have been.
I just want to cut you in there for a second. You mentioned the Europa League. Do you think Leicester should try and target that trophy? I mean, wouldn't it be a big statement from their part if they were
But
to actually
it's
go
very
on and
unrealistic. I think it's very unrealistic to expect, or for Leicester to expect that you could challenge for the Europa League from the get-go. Of course, like Wolves showed last year, you could probably get to the pre-quarters or quarter stage and then decide whether you want to give it a serious shot. But to challenge from it from the outset, you'll probably have to fly your first team players all across Europe to I forgot which group they're in, but probably the eastern side of Europe and stuff like that. It is going to take a toll on the team, especially considering that you might have a lot of cup games and Premier League games midweek. From that point of view, the Europa League is going to be a challenge for all the teams playing in the Europa League this season. But specifically for Leicester, I think their interest would be better suited to probably targeting a cup competition like the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, as well as trying to get in the top six again in the Premier League. Because let's not forget, this is a club that's trying to progress towards building a consistent future proof project under Brendan Rodgers, and he's a perfect fit for the club because he loves to play with a front-footed attacking philosophy, and I think the fans love to see that. So to just see him build upon that consistency, I think would be a successful season for Leicester.
moving on, we're going to be talking about one of the other London clubs this season, and it's Crystal Palace. And we all know about Crystal Palace, and they are usually associated as one of those teams who won't get relegated, but kind of always have these surges of form where they go on a 5-match winning streak, and then you can see them actually kind of consistently, if they perform after that, finishing maybe in the European positions, and then they actually usually have a drop off and then kind of end up in the 14th or 15th positions in the table. And this season, they have, of course, made a couple of purchases, and the one that stands out for me is Eberechi Eze, who actually might be just an exciting addition to the team. And, of course, Wilfried Zaha, who they have, again, I have no idea how, have managed to hold on to him for another season. And, of course, we all know that all their aspirations this season are totally surrounded around him. When it comes to Crystal Palace, especially as a Liverpool fan, you all know how it feels to have Roy Hodgson as a manager, but I do like him personally. I think he's a fantastic fit for a club like Crystal Palace. What do you expect from them this season? And do you think they can break into the top 10?
I doubt it because although they've started the season well, they have started the season well. I think majority of the past 6 or 7 years, other than the year they were under Frank de Boer, who was a fraud of a manager, as we will probably come out to mention a few times over the course of the year. They have always started well in the Premier League, and eventually, they're probably the one club that achieves safety before anyone else and just take the foot off the pedal. And you'll probably see a different Crystal Palace every week because that's the kind of side they are. But I really hope that under Roy Hodgson, and I hope he has a broader plan wherein they try and get into that upper echelons and, like you said, the top 10. Because the signing of Eberechi Eze is one of those signings that kind of point them in the direction towards a top 10 finish, because he's a talent that was touted by a lot of clubs, including West Ham and probably, the likes of Leicester and Everton. And he's probably going to be very very useful in trying to take the burden off Wilfred Zaha, who has literally been carrying the club for the longest time, and like you mentioned, to see him still be at Crystal Palace is quite a shock to many, but with him in the team, I think they need to make hay while the sun shines, and a top 10 should be the target, but like we've seen in the past, it could be a problem where Crystal Palace achieves safety too early and they just take the foot off the pedal.
I just think that they need to address the lack of goals in this team, and I do think that if they had actually added Ollie Watkins, who they kind of linked to as before Villa kind of scooped him, I do think that they need to add a fantastic centre forward to the team, or at least a good centre forward who can
Well,
guarantee.
do you think Jordan Ayew's not up to the billing? Because he's shown that he has scored a few
He
beauties
has.
over the
He
past
holds
year
the
or
ball
so.
up pretty well. I think I think he's a good player. I also enjoy watching the way he plays, especially he's a small guy, but he kind of is a battering ram for the centre forwards. He doesn't give them a moment of rest, but will he get you the 12 to 15 goals maybe required to ensure that you not just survive in the Premier League, but also maybe kind of attack the top 10? No, I don't think so.
Finally, coming on to our final team in this part of our Premier League preview, Burnley. And I think this is our last team that we're going to review today because they've just gone so under the radar this whole, during the lockdown and during this transfer window where they've probably signed only one or two players who are not even first team players. They've got Jeff Hendrick, who's left the club for Newcastle again. Sean Dyche has been vocal to the owners and the board members about the lack of transfer business and even threatened to leave the club. That would be a big blow for Burnley, in my opinion. And this is a season which is so crucial for Burnley because, as every club will face, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the club finances. And if they do eventually go down, in a similar way to Bournemouth, I think it could be a very long-term stay in the bottom divisions if they don't manage to stay up. So, what is your outlook on Burnley this season?
I think, first of all, even though I don't necessarily kind of enjoy watching Burnley play, I think Dwight McNeil is the only player that I kind of like, sit up and notice while they play and be like, okay, here's a guy who might actually try and do something out of the ordinary. But I don't think we can take anything away from the fact that Sean Dyche has done an absolutely fantastic job with this team, considering the facts, the finances that he has, the access to the amount of money that he has is unrivaled in the sense that it's so little compared to the rest of the league. And if you look at it, the way that he speaks in certain press conferences, he repeatedly claims that his side are not yet an established top flight club. Some people might argue that it's like part of his managerial style, but in a way that it is true because Burnley as a town also, it is unpretentious and it's unassuming, and they're very proud of the fact that Burnley as a club is an established team right now in the top flight, fifth consecutive season, if I'm not wrong. I think I'm wrong. I think in between one season they did get relegated, but just looking at that fact, um, he's done a fantastic job. And right now we all seen the reports where he and the chairman have had a lot of tension because of the fact that the chairman has not given him a budget for this season. And I would be very upset and I'll be very sad as a neutral if to see Burnley get relegated this season. But are you going to be surprised if they get relegated? I won't be surprised. Are you going to be
I
surprised?
wouldn't too.
I
It
don't
would
think so.
be. It's kind of a writing on the wall. They're accustomed to being a dogged defensive side that kind of gets points through draws and not really wins. They do get the odd win, but their strength is in grinding out points. And the way they've started this season, they look leaky at the back, mostly because their defense is quite aging. They're apart from Tarkovsky and Ben Mee, of course. The fullbacks Phil Bardsley and Eric Peters are on the wrong side of 30, and that's not going to help, especially when you have technical wingers who can dribble at pace and change direction so swiftly, and they're prevalent in all teams at the moment, and Burnley seem to lack in that department. So that would really hurt them, the fact that the fullbacks are always exposed. And I think the one direct one strategy to Chris Wood has paid off over the past few years, and having Jay Rodriguez as that dribbler behind him has helped. But they just don't have that tooth and that exuberance to their play that can actually get them goals this year, because Premier League football and the clubs in the Premier League have been evolving to a stage where you need to have technical players. it's not going to work if you're just going to hoof the ball to your number 9 and expect your runners beyond him to go and score a goal. It's quite outdated at this point. So I think the writing is on the wall for Burnley, and unless somehow they put together a run of 4 or 5 games where they probably win 2 or 3 of them towards the back end of the season, I don't see them staying up.
But would you put it past Sean Dyche having another miracle this season by maybe just sneaking into the top 15?
I think all good things have to come to an end, and I genuinely think this is probably the end for him at Burnley, because I've never seen him so vocal about his displeasure at the board. Normally he takes these things on the chin and tries to do what he can with the squad, but this time it seems like all is lost at this point. And the way
Would he have a lack of job offers after this season in the top flight, especially? Can you see him maybe managing a team like Crystal Palace? If
he could
Hodgson were to
be
finally
one of
retire?
those Sam Allardyce type of managers who come in to save a team. I could see him as that kind of manager. I don't see him as a manager that clubs will back to the hilt and as a manager to build a project around, simply because of his playing style. And I don't think that's a exciting watch for any fans who right now at this point in time are more important than anything to football clubs in terms of their displeasure or their positives or negative reviews on managers. So it's going to be a hard one for Sean Dyche. We all love the fact that he's done so well at Burnley, but this is going to be a hard one to take, and I don't want to see it happen, but I'm afraid it's going to happen at one point.